Obyte Community Radio.
Community Radio.
First time that OBS is letting me down. I'm restarting the music for you to enjoy, composed by Casper, and I'm lonely letting it run for a few more seconds because it's so beautiful.
Community Radio.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and be welcomed, warm and hearty welcome to the 5th episode of Obyte Community Radio. I hope I didn't forget to unmute me. Oh, I did forget to unmute me. Hello there as well on the Discord, and this has been a call out to my colleagues to unmute themselves on Discord as well. Especially to Bucky because he's still muted and now he's gone as well unmute.
Good evening. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, and I'm juggling cats here, you know, because I was checking the stream and listening to the music and like rocking out.
Ah, yeah, same here. I'm still having it. I know that I'm still having it on running in the background because I really do like the energetic sound of it, you know.
That is a great tune. I love it.
So. Yeah, I cannot get enough of it. So, you know, juggling cats. I always thought if this phrase is really coming from someone that juggles cats. You know, I'm always trying to see if there is some furball flowing and flying around in the air, but it's not happening. It's just the same.
It's a career path here in Newfoundland. It's a cat juggler. You know,
I think that's a career most Newfoundlanders. Newfoundlanders are trying to achieve because it sounds really fun.
Yeah.
You know, parts of my employees are saying every day that next time they are going to try something with cats or dogs, with animals, you know.
Well,
so a warm and hearty welcome to the 5th episode. We are having a lot of cool topics tonight. But first of all, let me introduce us to you. We're talking about Obyte. That's the logic, the logic as well maybe, but it's a logo that you're seeing. If you're watching on video, if you're seeing this on YouTube, there is a logo on the right. That's the Obyte logo, and in the middle, the guy framed by Bucky, Dödel, and myself. That's the user acquisition manager. It's Casper.
Hello.
It's oh, I need to see. No, it's this way. This way from my side, and it's the the first thing was right, Bucky. It's complicated. And it's late. At least here in Germany, it's quite late, so I'm not at my best in brain things, you know. So this is Casper, the user acquisition manager of Obyte, and one of the regulars in this show, I would like to say. The guy on the far right with the green background. That's the Canadian Bucky Dödel, jack of all trades, basically. He can do everything and none. You never know. He's surprised.
Everything and nothing, yes.
Yeah.
That's it. Jack of all trades, master of none. Yeah, that's right.
And it's the other one is me. I don't know all, so I'm Mr. Know It All. Yeti guys, and we are the presenters of this show. And we have packed a lot of cool things into the next 55 minutes. We got, I'm just taking it up because we have been in a hurry today, but nevertheless, we included latest talks that happened that are concentrating or have been going around witnesses. So we have there is going to be some talks from us or some chatting from us about the witness topic, and we're going to have exciting information about Polo Polo. I never know, by the way, if it's Pollo Pollo because a double L in Spanish is a J sound.
All Spanish speakers are pronouncing it like that, pollo
Yeah.
pollo, while the British are usually calling it polo polo.
So, well, you know,
Anyway, it's fine.
anyway, it's fine. And then we have news about the World Community Grid. The Thor Challenge is in the final round. We got again news about the Autonomous Agents Developer Contest that is running from Obyte itself. We have a new wallet version, and we have articles, and we have interviews, and we have a lot of things. So maybe we should not hold it up so long and directly start into the show. Casper just started, you know, we are meeting a bit prior to the show, so that we can start it off easily and talk to each other. And he said, yeah, you know what, Jan, there is something happened. We have had a totally interesting discussion today, super recent, and I would like to put that into the show, and would try to make this a headline of the show. So, Casper, what happened?
Yeah, I really think that the one topic that always comes up is the Obyte witnesses, what they do on the network, how they work, what would happen if they were shut down, and aren't they some sort of new privileged class of users? Instead of miners deciding which transactions to add to the next block, we just added a few witnesses, we call it something different, and then it's basically the same. It's such a misunderstood topic that I thought, and usually I have to, and a lot of others who are familiar with the Obyte platform, they have to explain it in 2 or 3 lines of text on the chat or somewhere else on an online forum.
Is it a topic that you can explain in 2 or 3 lines of text?
Well, yeah, but not without being misunderstood or misinterpreted. So basically, no.
Yeah, can you effectively?
Yeah. But it's such an important topic, and also a topic that Obyte is currently somewhat struggling with, both in terms of getting everyone to know exactly what they do, why they are there, but also in terms of why aren't they being decentralized. Because right now we have the founder, Tony, of the platform. He is running 10 out of the 12 witnesses. And everyone would point to that and say, well, that's kind of centralized, isn't it? Yeah, and indeed it is. But
maybe we can step one step back and explain, well, you know, we're talking about witnesses and obviously servers and things, but maybe we can take one step back and explain to the maybe not so crypto friendly knowing people around what a witness is. What are they doing?
Exactly. And what they do, first it's important to understand that Obyte isn't a blockchain. We don't use blocks. So everyone just adds transactions to the ledger. And of course, this would create a massive chaos. And it would be impossible to sort out double spend attempts. So if I pay, I have 10 megabytes, I pay 10 megabytes to you, and I pay 10 megabytes to Bucky. I would basically just use the same 10 megabytes to pay each of you 10 megabytes. And naturally, that's not allowed, and that shouldn't be possible.
It would be quite convenient, but at least for you.
Yeah, that sounds like a good investment.
So naturally, a consensus mechanism is required. And what Obyte does is to actually order all transactions into a perfect order. So it's possible to see which transaction came first, not by using timestamps, but by looking at which transaction references other transactions. And since they can sort of branch out, you could say, and each of these branches are allowed to be there. That's in the directed acyclic graph structure. Since they're able to branch out, it will sometimes be difficult to determine if one transaction in one branch came before the same transaction on another branch, and that's there needs to be some kind of mechanism to sort out which transaction came first then. And this is where the witnesses can come into play. And the only reason witnesses are on the network, it's to act as sort of buoys, because witnesses, they don't do anything to transactions at all. What they do is they post transactions to the network just like anyone else doing normal transactions. They Often they just send a couple of bytes to themselves or stuff like that. Um, and by looking at these transactions and considering those as a main chain, they are required to post serially, not creating these branches themselves, but they create one long chain. And by doing so, they create a main chain. And it's possible for full nodes, anyone can run a full node. And by ordering all other transactions according to those uh, posted by the witnesses, it becomes possible to see which is first. And that's basically all they do. They make transactions, and that's it. They don't do anything else. They don't try to determine which other transactions are good or bad or anything. They just post a transaction at a regular pace. And this is also what causes it's called the stability point. It causes the stability point to advance. And as soon as 6 of the 12 witnesses have seen or referenced either directly or indirectly other transactions, that those transactions become stable, and that's the reason for the delay you will see when you transact on the Obyte platform. When I post a transaction to the ledger, it takes a while for it to become stable, and that time is actually the time it takes before at least 6 witnesses has posted a transaction, and the stability point advances past the transaction I made. And as soon as that happens, the transaction I made becomes immutable. It's impossible to change or reorder in any way.
Mhm.
So they basically just exist, and you could say that what actually sets them apart from other full nodes is that they are run by known identities. So if a witness misbehaves, start posting in non-serialized order, then people will immediately be able to see that, and they will actually know who to contact and say, "Hey, you aren't acting as you are supposed to," uh, and that's when another important factor comes in, because witnesses aren't selected by the protocol, so to speak. They're selected by the users. So whenever a user posts a transaction, he or she actually defines which witnesses they want for their transaction. So obviously that could create a massive chaos. So there is a protocol rule saying that when you reference a transaction, you can only divert by one witness from that transaction that you reference. And this makes it possible to gradually change the witness list. And it's not something that is done by the Obyte core developers or anything like that. It's actually done by the users or a majority of users. Because if you want to be able to transact on the network, you need to have pretty much the same, at least the same 11 witness addresses for your transactions, and then you can differ by one transaction or one witness address. So that's what witnesses do on the Obyte ledger. They just post transactions of their own. Did I lose everyone now?
No, not at all.
No,
Okay.
I'm still around. Bucky?
Yeah. Oh, I'm still here. I'm still here. Hey, I'm still
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
Geniveau, I think, is maybe a French name. Perhaps had a couple of questions there in the Discord channel. Can Obyte be used in an organization as a private chain?
Absolutely. It would require creating a side chain with its own witnesses, and you would probably be able to even have that private chain interact with the main ledger by having an autonomous agent carry those transactions that the private part would like to transfer to the main DAG, so to speak. An autonomous agent could lift transactions from the private chain onto the main Obyte ledger. So I read how it's pronounced, Jivan. I think he's from India, actually.
Ivan?
Um, yeah, and he's a very active contributor, creating autonomous agents, writing chatbots, and he actually also created the Discord attestation bot just recently. So yeah, a very active community member.
Yeah,
But to get back to the explanation about private chains, it would of course require those transactions that needs to be shared with the main DAG to be lifted from this side chain and onto the main DAG, so to speak. Basically having an autonomous agent decide which transactions should become publicly visible and which to keep in the private part of the sort of private chain, so to speak. So yeah,
Interesting. That's
it's
interesting.
definitely possible, and you could have you could basically have a different protocol running in the sidechain as long as those transactions that are lifted to the main chain, the main Obyte DAG, complies with Obyte's protocol. Then you could likely divert from the protocol on a private chain.
Is this then some kind of piggyback? So riding, you know?
Yeah, but you might need data off the main chain, or to provide an opportunity to move assets or value basically from your private chain onto a public chain as well. But it's possible. I'm not going to say it's easy to do, but it's definitely possible.
The another question that Jiban had was, can we change all 12 witnesses in the wallet?
Not at once, because you wouldn't be able to find a valid parent. When you make a transaction, your transaction can only differ by one witness from the parent you select. And if you run a light vendor, a light wallet, and you don't have a full node, then you ask the hub to pick out a valid parent. So you basically just present your transaction to the hub and say, could you please find me a valid parent for this transaction? And the hub will then post your transaction on or with the valid parent. And actually, it's really an interesting topic, because we recently saw that some really old wallets that hadn't been updated for quite a while, and after the network having seen two new witnesses, and all the recent transactions all included those two new witnesses. So a very old wallet saying, hey, I would like to make a transaction, but that wallet's witness list was really old and contained two different witness addresses. and that actually caused the full nodes and the hops on the network to become really really slow because it had to dig so far back in all the data that it almost ground to a halt. So instead, a quick update was made, and it's now limited, and the hub will only look back. I think it's 100 transactions or so to find a valid parent, and if it can't, then you're told you'll either have to to run a full node and find the valid parent yourself, or change your witnesses to only differ by one. So that's how it works. Hmm.
You
Very
didn't lose me completely,
Oh, good,
but
good.
um, it's just like most cryptocurrencies. There are some specialities to Obyte
Yeah,
that I didn't know. Knew well, I know them now, but I didn't knew them. You know,
in
10
advance.
minutes
Yeah.
ago. Totally important. And now coming back to the initial topic that you just mentioned about
Hmm.
the not, or about the at least saying that that's not really decentralized, because
Yeah.
that's what you started off with.
And of course, if you had witnesses saying your transaction is fine, this transaction is fine, oh, this transaction isn't fine, then it becomes important that the owner of those witness nodes is someone acting honestly.
Mhm.
And that's why decentralization is such an important matter, because once you have a consensus mechanism that is divided into miners, you really need you would be able to have a 51% attack basically for proof of work algorithms if any of those large miners decided to collude, and they would be able to basically change and decide whether or not they wanted to include your transaction. And only decentralization, by having large amounts of miners, will make it far more difficult to collude.
Mm.
And that's why decentralization has become such a hot topic in all of crypto. That is because it's usually because you don't want anyone to be able to collude. And the more decentralized a blockchain becomes, the less likely it will be that 51% of those nodes are able to collude. So that's the reason for it being such a hot topic. But it's really a different matter for Obyte, um, because these witnesses don't actually do anything but just post a transaction every now and then. Uh, it doesn't make any. First of all, there's no financial incentive for those to
That would have been
collude.
the additional question.
Yeah.
Um, is there any financial incentive connotated with that logic?
Well, there is a witnessing fee. You
Hmm.
pay a fee every time you do a transaction
Hmm.
on the Obyte ledger, and that fee gets split into two different parts: a payload fee and a witness fee. Uh, this
Yeah,
becomes
well, the
really
witnesses have to be
technical.
paid because in the end they are servers
Exactly.
somewhere and they are costing money somewhere. So it's logic that
Yeah.
there has to be some compensation for that.
Of course, but the at least the initial thought of how these witnesses should be distributed is that since they don't really do anything but to provide health to the and make sure that the Obyte ledger runs, and that full nodes on the network are able to sort double spend attempts and stuff like that, then there of course you would want these witnesses to be um, trusted parties, and apart from them being run by known people, you would also want them to somehow have skin in the game, so to speak. So you wouldn't really have skin in the game if the only skin was you being able to make $20 profit a month from running a witness. You could simply just turn that, and those $20 would be basically nothing. So the witnesses on the Obyte ledger is actually we try to find witnesses who relies on the Obyte and the health of the Obyte ledger for their use cases. Um, it could be someone basing their business case on the Obyte ledger, and if the Obyte ledger stopped working, then they would lose whatever that business case generates of revenue. So you would have real world skin in the game rather than just ecosystem skin in the game, so to speak. Does it make sense at all?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So
Totally.
so the financial incentive to run a witness isn't big. I think actually at the current rate of transactions being posted to the ledger, it's even at a loss. You will have a loss running a witness. Um, so why is it so difficult for Obyte to decentralize these witnesses? Well, I basically just provided the answer.
Well,
It's
if it's a
because
loss, then it's no, you know.
yeah, if I run the Polio Polio project, of course, and I to be able to transact and to make these donations and help other people, then we rely on the logic provided by Obyte.
Sure.
And should Obyte network stop working, then my platform would stop working. So I, of course, have a really great interest in keeping the network healthy. Um, so I actually do have an incentive to run a witness, and would have skin in the game. Uh,
Yeah,
well,
but
sort
it's
of,
not coming
because
from just running a witness and having, you know what I mean? It's not,
yeah.
it's
It's
derived
actually
from having a platform that runs on the Obyte and,
yeah,
you know,
exactly, yeah. And I
um,
think actually I will be posting an application to the Obyte community to become a witness candidate, because it's of course people will point to it and say, oh, but you're part of the core team on Obyte, and that's not really decentralization. And they would be perfectly right. It wouldn't be a decentralized witness, but it would be a witness being run by someone who relies on the Obyte ledger and the health of the network to do what I do. So it's very important to me actually that the Obyte ledger runs.
yeah, well, uh, it doesn't necessarily. I'm always having problems with this strange discussion going on about decentralization. You can't
Hmm.
decentralize humans. So, you know, you are at least not Tony. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Uh, for sure, you have a big interest in having Obyte up and running, and
Hmm.
therefore you're stepping forward and saying, "Hey, you know what? I could run as a witness." And
Yeah,
then maybe Tony would only have to run 9. I don't know. I'm just, you know, I'm just thinking out loud, and maybe this isn't the way.
yeah,
Um,
but
but you know,
actually, Tony isn't the one I need to convince. I actually need to convince the users
absolutely.
to change one of the witnesses in the wallet to the witness I will be running. So it's not really Tony I need to convince.
No, and this is
Obviously,
absolutely showing that the approval mechanism behind it is decentralized.
yeah, but it's
You know what I mean?
also
It's
yeah, definitely. But it's actually also the pain of decentralizing
oh
the
yes,
Obyte witnesses, because it if it was simply just flipping a switch, then it would be far easier. But it has turned out it's not. Of course, those who run a hub that all the light wallets connect to, they can the hubs can push witness list to the light wallets,
mm,
and that of course helps to a certain extent, but it doesn't make sure that everyone changes the witnesses at once.
no, for sure not.
So it's still needed that everyone who runs full nodes and well, people who run light nodes but doesn't want the hub to dictate which witnesses to use, they would have to change it themselves. And if they don't, they will differ by more than one. Or if those who did change to a new witness also changes to a second new witness, then they will differ by more than one. So it's actually quite a complicated matter to get witnesses decentralized and to get all users to agree on changing a
Yeah,
witness address.
there are a lot of pains associated with decentralization,
Yeah.
especially if you're thinking about changing things, and this voting mechanism is decentralized. Then it gets really, well, it can be quite fast a pain in the ass of trying to change that.
Yeah, and
Because
particularly if you're part of a minority.
oh yeah, because there is a huge minority that most likely either doesn't know how to change,
Exactly.
has no motivation to change, or has forgotten about their wallet, at least
Long
right
ago.
now, at all.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And therefore,
Yeah,
you are
exactly.
really in a dire situation, because you need to most likely get more than just 51%, because there is a huge percentage currently, probably, not being using the wallet at all, and that you cannot convince, because they
Exactly.
are just staying where they are.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's decentralization has pains. Like democracy, I nevertheless I wouldn't want to miss both. So
Yeah. As someone once said, democracy is the worst way to rule a country.
oh yeah,
Second to all the others.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
But
Or something
the-
like that.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I know what you're saying, Jan, about the pains, and I know on the Steam platform, there's the idea of getting a witness to rank up high, to it can it's almost like it's a marketing campaign, an advertising campaign of itself, let alone the technical needs behind it. It just seems like such a complicated process. I mean, I wonder, is it a good thing that it's so complicated, because it will deter bad actors from being involved, or should it be made to be easier to start to become a witness? What do you guys think of that?
First of all, the witnesses on the Steam ledger, it's they are actually miners or stakers.
Yeah.
So they have a huge power over what happens on the network, and whether it's good or bad, it's actually really difficult to answer. It probably doesn't. What I've learned is that regardless of how difficult you make things, you usually only deter those who are who basically doesn't care too much. And one thing is very certain, is that bad actors, they care. So they take the time
Oh,
to
yeah.
learn. They take the time to read code and to basically do all the work required that you set up in order to keep bad actors away. But what actually happens is you simply just scare away everyone else.
Yeah.
So you end up you fighting the bad actors, and everyone else has left. So it's quite a difficult matter, really, and I don't think there's a single simple answer on that, basically.
No, and obviously, I like to come back to the initial point that you made about, oh yeah, this gets normally explained in 2 to 3 lines of text, and now I'm taking a look at the clock, and oh no, I cannot, because I do not have my glasses on. But if you just wait for 1 second.
We just spent half an hour.
Exactly, it's
And
half
two
an
lines-
hour
and two
we
lines
talked
of text.
about, and
Half an hour to explain 2 lines of text. Yeah.
I need to agree, at least to myself, that I have understood the basic concept,
Hmm.
and I have understood the problems with the concept,
Hmm.
But still, I wouldn't feel very much comfortable explaining the Obyte witness methodology to anyone else. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
if I would
And
like to look deeper into the topic, I would need to invest even more time than just talking this half hour with you.
yeah. And that's one of the really big pains for Obyte. It is that these witnesses are often so misunderstood. And also to refer to the discussion going on earlier on Discord today, um, what would happen if a government decides to shut down a witness? Um, well, they could, but in some countries it would you would have to have some sort of legal reason to shut a witness down. And since the witnesses aren't actually doing anything but just posting a small transaction of let's say 1,000 bytes to their own wallet, that's all they do. So would they be held responsible if someone else decided to share copyrighted material or child pornography or all of these bad things that you would normally on Facebook and stuff like that, all centralized solutions, they would be censored away. Um, that actually isn't possible on Obyte because everyone are allowed to transact. There's no gatekeepers. There's no minors. Obviously, normally what would happen is that on distributed ledgers, we saw it on Steam as well. There was a huge commotion going on because someone posted some illegal content,
Yeah.
and it required all the front end developers, Steemit Inc. and Busy.org and all these different front ends, they were required to block certain transactions from being viewable. They can probably block out different users, different transactions and stuff like that. But it's anyone who has a full node on the Steam network would probably be able to dig out those bad transactions and watch those posts, even though all the front ends doesn't allow it. So it's it's not really it's not really possible. That's the thing about immutable ledgers. They are immutable. So so
Mhm.
it's both the benefit of it. No one can change your transactions once it's made. It's there, and it's also a great pain that causes headaches to lawmakers and governments for that matter. And naturally, you would want someone to not break the law. Uh, but who's responsible for not breaking the law? The guy creating the content or the bad transactions, or a witness on that network? It's really an interesting question, and I can only speak for myself. I live in Denmark, and we wouldn't have any legislation in place here in Denmark that would allow anyone to shut down my witness. Um, because someone else did something they aren't allowed to. So you cannot be convicted of doing anything wrong
If
if
you didn't
someone
do it
else.
wrong.
Exactly. Um, and then you could say, oh, but you're providing the platform. Well, I'm not entirely. Witnesses aren't providing the platform. Full nodes on the network are providing the platform. As long as there's just a single full node running, that is the platform. And with hundreds of full nodes running, it's hundreds of computers uniformly uh, running the platform, so to speak. So it's really difficult. You cannot pinpoint one and single out one node or one user and say you're responsible for running this network. In that sense, Obyte is a decentralized network. All the full nodes spread over all of the world is actually running the network. So you would have to, in order to close down the network entirely, um, you would have to shut down at least 6 of the witnesses. And if a government decided to, I don't know the legislation in Russia where Tony is from, But if the government decided to shut down his witnesses, then the network would actually grind to a halt. People would still be able to transact, send funds back and forth, but they would never become stable because the stability point wouldn't advance because witnesses weren't posting anymore.
I was
So
thinking about that. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but isn't it in Obyte's best interest then to try to get more witnesses?
absolutely, and we are always on the lookout for potential witnesses, and anyone wanting to become a witness are totally free to do so, because Obyte isn't selecting the witnesses; the users are. So everyone wanting to run a witness is highly encouraged to start doing so, um, and campaign for the users to make that switch. So and actually, what is most important isn't necessarily who is running those nodes, but where each of those nodes run. If the server is located in Russia, then it would be possible under Russian law to shut that down. If it runs in Denmark, it would require it to be illegal in Danish law to shut that down. And by basically distributing witnesses as geographically wide as possible, it's actually better than distributing it on as many users as possible.
No. So from a logical point around the globe, that's for sure making most sense to have
Mhm.
many countries involved and many networks involved and many whatever involved to
Mhm.
make it more fail-safe.
And
But now,
Jivan actually wants to run a witness,
oh yeah,
and
that's cool.
by all means, please do so.
By all means, step forward.
Yes, definitely.
So by all means, but that was a very good a good point to make. We are talking about this now. I'm looking at the clock, and I have my
Oh yeah,
glasses
I have a
on.
tendency to.
So we are talking about this now for 35 minutes, and I think.
I have a question that's come
no.
up from YouTube.
Oh,
I
that's
just
good.
posted
It's
it.
not.
I
It's
just
not a
posted-
Bucky Doodle question. It's a YouTube question.
It's not about the other question. This is a good question. So I just posted it up here
Yeah.
in the chat, so you can just want to have a look, and you can speak to it.
Um, he's asking, doing the Steam attestation airdrop that we did July 18. We started back then, and it's actually still running. How did it affect the current Obyte holders from a price point of view or more? That's a really difficult question, really. We could see that a lot of Steam users attested their users, and we also know about several having trying to cheat the system. Of course, that's unavoidable. And how it affected the price? Well, Obyte has since day one always been had a reason to distribute all the funds for free. So naturally, some of those who receive bytes for free will sell it, and that would affect price negatively. Um, Also, some of the distribution methods used incentivize people to buy bytes. Um, for the email attestation, for instance, it requires you to pay for an attestation. So you would at least need some bytes to pay for the attestation in order to get bytes. So that could create some liquidity and some volume, but it's really difficult. Obviously, distributing bytes for free would always and will always cause a downwards pressure on the price. And as you can see here from the recent development, the autonomous agent developer contest is actually a way to distribute bytes for free to people who contribute to the platform rather than just someone who is more likely to simply just cash in, so to speak, seeing it as free money.
Broadening a user base is necessarily also a good step. Not necessarily directly from a price point of view.
Yeah, but it definitely raises the awareness,
Exactly.
and it raised the awareness of the Obyte project. It was called Byteball back then,
Yeah.
but it definitely raised awareness, and a lot of Steam users got to know Obyte. So
Yeah.
from that point of view, it was quite an interesting success, I would say. Um, Whether or not it's been worth it, well, we'd just basically be in a situation where we'd have to find other ways to distribute the funds. So it has to be distributed some way or another.
Yeah, it's complicated to really try to judge this from now,
Hmm.
because there are so many factors coming into play when we talk about the price or the
Mm.
value of a thing, that you cannot only pin it down now and ask, here, has this Steam initiative been worth it? That's super hard to,
Yeah.
Yeah,
because
yeah,
there are so many
it's
factors around it, and that are influencing the price as well, or maybe even more than these initiatives.
mhm.
Um, this is hard to say.
But if you go back to the point in time when Obyte or Byteball was launched, uh, uh, all a million gigabytes were created out of thin air. So you basically had something with no value at all,
Yeah, sure.
and those were distributed for free to anyone, and for that currency to actually have the value, and to reach the value, of course. Back in the booming days, it was insane,
Yeah,
but for any basically any distributed ledger to have that kind of value, it's actually quite impressive, and it witnesses that Obyte actually did quite well in terms of providing a platform that people has this belief in that will be able to succeed, because you have thousands of projects currently fighting or struggling to become the number one used project, and they all crave for adoption and awareness and stuff like that. But it's actually rather few projects that actually are able to pull through, and particularly over such a long period of time. Obyte is now running on third year, and is we are still around, and I'm absolutely sure we're not going anywhere anytime soon.
uh, I'm sure as well. And most likely, we should take this as the opportunity to blend over, to blend out of the witness discussion that we had and the price, which is totally fine, because that's really an important question, and we do love to answer that as well. Into the things that we have prepared, because as you know, I read out quite a long list of topics that we
Yeah,
have
yeah,
prepared, and what I can tell you for sure is we won't make it. There are too many
yeah.
topics for too few time.
I
So
would definitely like to cover the World Community Grid, the Thor channel
then
challenge.
go for it. World Community
Yeah,
Grid.
yes. We're now in the third and final week, the grand finale, where the 10 biggest contributors are battling out. And exactly as I predicted, we saw a team that bursted out all of these results, causing Obyte to come in second after the first day of the contest. So everyone, at least I was like, we're not in the first place anymore. Someone is beating us. Oh no! And it turned out it was probably someone holding back already crunched results, waiting for the exact right moment to release all those results to get the
Sneaky.
maximum amount of CPU time registered for this final round. But we're back in first place now. Already after day two, we we drove comfortably past the, I think it was the CETI USA team, and we're comfortably in first place now, and I'm pretty sure we're going to win this one again for the
Yay!
second tip gear.
Go Team Obyte.
Yeah,
Do something good with all that computational power.
Exactly, exactly. It's hundreds of years being donated basically to science every week. So it's really impressive.
Yeah.
And thank you to everyone participating in that challenge.
I'm totally happy about that challenge, and I'm totally happy that Obyte is taking part. Formally, or I need to be totally honest, I have been always more or less a part of the Gridcoin idea and of the Boink idea even before that, because I do really love this idea of being able to do something good with the PC that I'm having standing around here. Just donating it, well, and the electricity that it needs, to scientific research that else is really lacking this computational power. So
Yeah.
that's something very good.
And they
um,
they are really doing some major progress on gene research thanks to this. Not necessarily the Boink project, but definitely due to massive computational power becoming available now.
Absolutely.
It's making a huge difference in science, particularly in cancer
I could
research.
now start with the Google and the quantum thing, but I won't, because that is going to lead us totally away from all the topics that we're having written down for this show. So, World Community Grid, it seems Team Obyte is going to rock it. Go Obyte. And
Yeah.
then we got Poyo Poyo, or Polo Polo, however you want
Yes.
to pronounce it. Which is,
Yes.
I know it's your, it's your baby. Therefore,
It's my baby, and that's why I take every opportunity I have to talk about it.
yeah. So go.
Oh, but it's actually also also about charity and donating stuff. Instead of CPU time, it's money, but it's making a real impact, and does make a change to other people's lives. And while $4 or $5 might not be a lot to me, it actually means a lot to those receiving $4 or $5 worth of vegetables or chicken or whatever. So and the the most important part of this, to me at least, is that it actually provides transparency. I know exactly what happens to my donated funds. It's being used to pay for this amount of vegetables, and it's being eaten by this family. I can only say that I have very high hopes. And earlier this evening, I was interviewed by a journalist, and every time I talk to others about this, not necessarily crypto savvy people, every time I explain what we are able to do using distributed ledgers, they're like, "Oh wow, but that's totally brilliant. Why aren't you doing this really large scale?" Um, and when, to be honest, it's because we aren't quite there yet. We still have the on and off ramps to sort, but we're getting there, and week after week we still see some progress being made. We still have the ITU students, the IT University in Copenhagen here. They are spending a lot of their spare time working on the project and improving on things. And we actually just completed phase one of the improvements that we put up for the grants program. So we
that
are basically ready to move on to phase two for
that
even more
sounds very,
improvements.
very good.
Hmm.
Is there also, there is already a site up? Can we have please all links that are to that topic
Oh, of course, yeah, yeah. I'll
in
post it in
Discord
the
and as
radio
well as
audience.
in YouTube? Then people can directly follow, and if you want to have,
There's actually a couple of applications right now that are open, so people can try how it is.
perfect.
Sure,
So
most
if you
would be.
want to, I don't know, donate a chicken or whatever application is there open right now, I cannot say, then you can be the donor of meat, something to eat, which is the basic that we all need apart from
Yeah.
drinking. And this is what Polo Polo or Pollo Pollo is trying to do, making things better in Venezuela,
Exactly.
where things are quite looking bad.
Indeed.
So this is also a possibility that came along with blockchains and with cryptocurrencies like Obyte, to have this value transformation or this value transactions across countries, across borders, and with this Pollo Pollo thing, this is you are able to do charity.
Actually, you could actually refer to it as instant tokenization of a physical product.
Yeah,
Doesn't
quite
that
good.
sound
Yeah,
great?
that's good.
That sounds very impressive.
Yeah, yeah, because you have a physical product, and in order for someone else anywhere in the world to be able to pay for that product, you create a tokenized version of it. They basically put up the product on the Polyo Polyo platform, and that enables someone else anywhere in the world to make a donation of this digital currency. They purchase this token of a product. That's
Exactly. So
that's beautiful.
you tokenize chickens, and then
Yeah,
you can you can buy a chicken a chicken token.
token.
Yeah, that was quite quite complicated. Chicken token, token chicken. That was quite complicated. And then donate
Yes.
this, and then it's done physically in Venezuela, and that's a good thing.
Yeah.
It's not a game. It's not going out to catch some Pokemons or whatever. It's really a thing that has worth in itself without the transfer of worth, and that's a very good thing. And therefore, I love this platform. I love your motivation to talk always about it. When you only need to say Pollo Pollo, and then Casper starts. This is
I go on for half an hour.
so. I really love
Yeah.
the motivation behind it and the passion that you show, because this is really only when you love what you're doing, you're showing this much passion, and
Exactly.
that's really an amazing thing, and it's only possible because Obyte is running.
Exactly.
That
So
needs to be said.
you basically just convinced me. I'm going to apply for the community to select the Polyo
Very good.
Polyo platform as a witness.
Very good. I think that would be a very wise choice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's talk in the last 5 minutes. It's only 3, but I say 5. About the Autonomous Agents Developer Contest, because this is really quite an important thing
Yes.
for the platform itself.
It's a huge. I could talk half an hour about that as well. I'll try to.
Is there
cut
a
it down
topic
to
that
3
you
minutes.
cannot talk half an hour about?
Mother-in-law, probably.
Oh, you said that on video on YouTube, my friend. I don't know if that's a good idea.
Yeah, she
Trouble's
doesn't
coming.
listen.
Okay, that's good.
So actually, I would. We are just completing round 6 now. The deadline is tonight, and there's already some really interesting entries. The last round, we don't have enough time. I would really love to cover some of the entries from the last round, but it's too short on time already, because I really need to highlight a really great article that was put up in it's a Russian developer community called Haber, HABR.com. It's an article co-written by Tony and another of the core developers on Obyte, and it explains in great detail on the autonomous agents and how they work, and they created a full game. It's called the 51% attack game. They created a full game as an autonomous agent to support this tutorial on how to get started writing autonomous agents. So if people are either familiar with Russian or are able to use Google Translate, I would highly recommend people to take a look at that. I think I'll post the link to that article,
I
the
look and I
radio
can't
channel.
Yeah, very good.
find it. I can't find it. I'm looking for it.
I found it. There you go.
And apart from that, I'm just reading out a bit of the news. The wallet version 2.8.0 has been pushed from the hops now.
Yeah, it was actually released like two weeks ago, and the iOS App Store, Apple App Store, became available a couple of days later, and the hubs are now pushing it. So if users are seeing a request when they start their Obyte wallet, and it says update available, then please do update. It's always important to stay up to date on the latest version, but always make a backup. Regardless of whether or not you are going to update, always create a backup.
Yeah, that's a very good idea. Very important. And you can take this really as an advice. Normally, we are not doing any advices at all, but on this, and it's one of the
That's an
very
advice.
rare occasions where you can really take this as an advice. Back it
Yeah.
up.
Exactly.
Because if it's gone, it's going to be you are going to be very in pain, depending on how much was on that wallet. And that's unnecessary if you are backing it up. Totally important.
Absolutely.
Bucky, back it up.
Back it up. I back up. I put on my put on my tinfoil hat and I back up regularly.
Yes, you should. Yeah. Tinfoil hat not included.
Not included. That's right. Yeah, and you don't have to take my fashion advice about wearing a tinfoil hat.
No,
Anybody out
that's again some
That's
topic
an
where we are not doing any advices on. Okay, and I think really that's quite a cool conclusion, isn't it? I know, Casper, that we have gazillions of topics left on this amazingly long list of topics that we have computed for this show.
I
But
think
you know,
we got the most important was covered, and
I
we'll just
agree.
carry the rest to the next show.
I agree. The next show is going to happen in 14 days from now. It's the 24th of October. It always happens at 8 p.m. UTC, which is transferred or translated. I hate time zoning, so if you are hiding time zoning just as I do, you always will be wrong. Therefore, I'm saying it's translated to 10 o'clock. Oh no, 24th. It could be that there was a time shift in my area in Germany.
could be.
Oh no, it's going to kill me.
So too.
But no, right now it's 10 p.m. Middle European time. This is where the show starts. It's, I don't know, something half an hour-ish on Newfoundland and Labrador because they are crazy.
Yes, we are crazy. Yep.
And it's check it out. It's 8 p.m. UTC, the universal time code, which means it translates to some time in your own time zone. Please check it out. There are a lot of Googlish things you can use to see what time zone this is on your side of the world. Check it out because we would really like to have you on board on the 24th of October, 8 p.m. UTC. For sure, Casper is going to be around because he's the regular guy, and as you have seen, he's the motivated and loving and passionate and whatever guy. And Bucky and me are just giving him the.
We're cheerleaders.
Yeah.
We're cheerleaders. We need to get some pom poms.
Yeah, we need to get some. So Bucky and me will be there as well, but Casper as well. So 24th of October in 14 days from now, 8 p.m. UTC, 10 p.m. Middle European summertime. And yeah, thanks a lot, Bucky. It has been a pleasure, just like always. Thanks a lot, Casper.
Thank you.
And this was the 5th episode of the Obyte Community Radio Show. Thank you to all the listeners out there. It has been a pleasure doing this for you. And have a good night. And you can listen now to a bit of the song written by Casper, especially for that show that we are having tonight. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Now I need pom-poms.